Welcome. We are here today to acknowledge Representative Ford Price, his leadership in introducing House Bill 1960 and working to get it passed during the 86th legislative session. This legislation establishes the Governor's Broadband Council for the state of Texas. As we all know, internet is no longer a luxury, but a 21st century utility that is increasingly essential to everyday life. This access impacts regional commerce and agriculture, education, health and public safety, cultural enrichment and governmental operations, as well as aiding in countless conveniences and efficiencies in all of our lives. It's also critical to the future of economic growth in our state. Today's honored guests not only recognize the vital importance of broadband internet access to his fellow Texans, but also took the steps to create a council tasked with facilitating the development of broadband policy statewide. For these reasons and more, the Texas Library Association wishes to recognize Representative Price's efforts. Mr. Price, would you like to come? Today, we have Catherine Urban, Cindy Wienia, and Melody Warren, and they are going to read the resolution that was passed by the Council of the Texas Library Association.
This is the text of the Texas Library Association resolution honoring Texas Representative Ford Price. Whereas House Bill 1960 relating to the creation of the Governor's Broadband Council was introduced by Representative Ford Price in the 86th Texas Legislature, and whereas the Governor's Broadband Council presents an opportunity for Texas to take a holistic approach to broadband policy that is essential to increasing digital inclusion across the state.
Whereas the bill establishes a council comprised of 15 members that will research broadband development in underserved and unserved areas, identify barriers to broadband access and development in the state, and determine how those barriers might be overcome, and analyze how statewide access to broadband would benefit economic development, education opportunities, state and local law enforcement, emergency preparedness, delivery of health care, and more. Whereas 94% of Texans do not currently have access to adequate internet speeds at their public libraries, yet these public libraries provide vital links to information for students, job seekers, small business owners, entrepreneurs, and many others. And whereas Representative Price realized that libraries are a critical component of any broadband policy and graciously added a representative from a library advocacy organization to the composition of the council.
Whereas, thanks to Representative Price's leadership, House Bill 1960 passed and was signed by the Governor. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Texas Library Association, on behalf of our 6,500 members, hereby expresses sincere thanks and appreciation to Representative Ford Price for his leadership on these critical issues. Signed, Cecilia Barham, President, and Joe Dahlstrom, Interim and Executive Director of the Texas Library Association.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the association so much for recognizing our work on this House bill. I want to thank them for their advocacy, for their input as a member of the council. This will make a big difference with regard to expansion of broadband across Texas. And libraries are a very important component, as you just heard, for our rural communities and communities all over Texas to participate. And so The thing I want to make clear is this would not have happened without the help of so many people. And I think Governor Abbott, I thank him for signing this bill. I thank our colleagues in the House and in the Senate for recognizing this need. It is something that so many take for granted. We are living in an age, and you've heard it stated before, that today broadband access is important to all of us as electrification was to the United States back in the 1920s. So increasingly, we've got a dependence for economic development on broadband access, on healthcare, on education. Just about every area of our lives are affected by it. And so the fact that a tremendous number of Texans don't have broadband access, the fact that rural Texas is lacking in broadband access, really created a need and an issue that I am fortunate to have worked on. And this is one of the issues. There's lots of issues we have the opportunity to work on in the state legislature, but this is one that I felt very strongly about because it helps so many folks across our state. And I think it's such a great opportunity for us to focus on something positive that's going to make a difference in the everyday life of so many Texans. I actually didn't realize how many folks were without it until we started to research the issue and figure out, how many folks are in need. And for the last 2 sessions, I passed a lot of the telehealth and telemedicine legislation. And we can continue to do that and pass all those bills in the world, but if you don't have broadband access, those advances won't help folks in communities that don't have access to broadband. So I think from a healthcare standpoint, we definitely need it. From an education standpoint, we definitely need it. And from a commerce and economic development standpoint, it is critical. So I'm grateful to my colleagues. I'm grateful to my House staff. I'm grateful to the Senate and the governor for signing this bill. I think the representatives of this council will make a huge difference going forward on the implementation of broadband across the entire state that will make us a better state and will improve the daily lives of those who are affected. Lastly, I'm going to thank AARP for providing some input on this bill because you would never know, maybe if you haven't thought about it, that there are a number of seniors living across the state who feel tremendous social isolation, who have no contact with folks who, without broadband access in today's world, they suffer. And so their input on this council will be beneficial as well, and I think we're going to be well represented with 15 members to provide the input necessary for us to carry the torch forward when we go back in the 87th legislature to make some more progress. So I thank the association very much for this recognition. Again, without their advocacy, I'm not sure we'd be standing here today, so it's really great to have them as partners along the way to make this a reality. And I can't thank all of you all enough for showing up today because it means a lot to me personally, but it also means a lot to the efforts of so many people who are making this legislation something positive for Texans all over the state. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.